Discussion is about navigating mental health in the digital age. I'm not going to give a big intro and drag it a lot, but as all of you know from all the previous panel discussions and the conversations that we had with our experts, we're in such a digital age that technology can be a boon or a ban. So it can basically connect us. We started with Rishu giving us a demo of Mind Voice and how just reading or reciting a 30-second text, the neuroscience and AI can recognize our moods, stress levels, tiredness and all of that, and help parents and educators to understand what the child is going through, what are the stress levels, what are the confidence levels, to provide help. And while we moved on into the sessions, we also understood that, like Ms. Haipriya mentioned, we are all confined into little boxes in screens. And as you can see in a lot of living rooms right now, the children are sitting in a different sofa and the parents are sitting in a different sofa. They're all definitely into the screens. The parents may be in the IPL cricket screens and the children in some games or Instagram or social media or whatever, but we're still inside screens. And even though we're sitting in the same room, we're not having human conversations, and that's how the digital age is taking over. So it can be good, it can be bad, depends on how we use it. And to discuss that exact topic, we have a packed panel today. We have 4 people, and I'm very glad to introduce the panel to you. The first speaker of panel 3 is Dr. Meghna Singhal. She's a trauma-informed psychotherapist specializing in couple conflicts and child-adolescent mental health. With an immense doctorate in parenting postdoc from the University of Queensland, Australia, she's certified in Positive Parenting Program, PPP. Over 15 years, she's led 500 plus workshops, 200 plus talks, 4,000 plus psychotherapy hours. With over 25 plus publications, she has won Best International Researcher and Special Achiever Awards. She's also penned 100 plus in-depth research-based high-quality articles on various aspects of parenting with inputs from researchers and parents all over the world. Dr. Meghna hosts podcasts and founded the Racing Family Academy, fostering global family support. You can find her on Instagram and YouTube as The Therapist Mommy. We're very glad to have you, ma'am. Welcome. Next in the panel, we have Ms. Richa Singh, co-founder and CEO of Happiness. Growing up in Lucknow, Richa was exposed to rich culture of literature and writing, which was further accelerated by her early adoption of internet in a big city. This led her towards a life of blogging and social media. Wanting to further this movement, she went on to create Blog Chatter, India's most active community of bloggers. At every juncture, she used the power of her platform to educate people and the strengths about internet. For example, her TED Talks is centered around particular usage of social media to spark changes leading to room conversations across homes globally. However, it all turned when Richa became a parent, that her focus shifted back towards highlighting the darker aspects of internet as she encountered it in her early days. Eager to provide an effective and user-friendly solution, she started developing a plug-and-play gadget, a safe internet for kids box, ensuring children's online experience are secure. As both a parent and a blogger, Richa acknowledges the internet's polarizing nature with potential for both positive and negative impacts. Happiness, a safe internet playground that emphasizes on guidance rather than surveillance and helping parents trailblaze the challenges of the digital age for children and self. We're very happy to have you, ma'am. Welcome. Third on the panel is Mr. Shreyas Mehta, CEO of the Little Gym India. Mr. Shreyas is an experienced business leader with more than 2 decades of experience and proven track record of helping grow brands and business in tough environments. His experience spans across US, India, and Thailand. He, for most part of his tenure, worked in startups, specializing in scaling up business operations and settling the right kind of processes for seamless transition from a startup to a growth company. He is a parent of 2 and is very passionate in the early child development space. It is his passion that got him into the Little Gym, where he is able to be a part of a business that also makes a difference. We're very glad to have you, sir. Welcome. And finally, introducing our last guest speaker for today, Ms. Moa Chinnappa is a renowned author, podcaster, public speaker, journalist, and a corporate communicator known for her dedication to storytelling and advocacy. Her podcast, The Mohua Show, launched in 2020, which has reached over 1 million viewers and feature guests contributing to social change globally. Beyond this, she also hosts the Literature Lounge, a collaboration with Rupa Publications India, and Dear X, a podcast addressing the complexities of divorce. Ms. Chinnappa is lauded for her focus on marginalized communities and social issues like displacement and gender equality. Her efforts have been recognized with awards such as Changemaker Award, showcasing a significant impact in fostering meaningful conversations. Ms. Mohua continues to provide a voice for those unheard, offering valuable insights on pressing topics. Welcome, ma'am. And finally, I'm getting it right to moderate the panel. We have Mr. Sairam, co-founder Mindei, and I'll hand it over to him for the last ever panel discussion of the day. And I hope all of you are on track with your bingos. Once we finish this session, we're going to evaluate the scores and we'll get to see who gets the prize. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reena. I promise this is the last panel of the day. I request all of you to keep your energies as high as it has been all through the day. Thank you so much in advance for that. Thank you so much for all your time. I know all of you are very, very busy in whatever you do. You do really good work, but yeah, it's good to have you. I'll start with Mohua, if that's okay. Mohua, as a parent, what are some of the positive ways, you're a podcaster, as your introduction said, what are some of the positive ways that internet can benefit children and young people?
Thank you so much for having me here. So there's no way that we can deny the presence of internet, right? And it is taking over our lives. It has helped many children navigate their studies, read a lot more than what they did just with books. Definitely there is a good part to the internet. I started my business basically only because of the internet, because I signed myself in at a very late age. The internet also helps me transcend geography, where I can get in touch with my child, I can talk to him. But definitely there is also the darker side of the internet, and we know that more and more children are not spending time with their families. They go rush straight into their rooms the minute they come back from school. And these are worrying things, because we know that loneliness is increasing day by day, and they are forgetting probably how it is to navigate just simple things of being children in a playground. So I really don't know if I can give a solution as to how we can really get down to closing this entire gap between how much is right and how much is not. But for sure, one can be involved as a parent in doing fun things with them, and one can't ignore the fact that there are specially able children who really benefit with the internet. And there is so many aids that they have in which they are also part of mainstream society. So I think there is a good and bad. It's like me remembering the time when the first time the computer came in, and I belong to that era. And they all said that, oh, nobody's going to do anything now. They're always going to be stuck in the with the computer, and nothing's going to go on. And today we can't imagine our lives without that. So yeah, I think it's about walking the path properly.
Thank you. I think balance is the operative word.
Exactly.
But before we start exploring how to get that balance right, Dr. Meghna, I'll come to you. We explored a little bit about the positive sides of internet, and I know you do a lot of good work on internet as well, with the number of followers you have on Instagram and LinkedIn and whatnot. But what are some of the darker side effects of either early or excessive exposure to internet in the context of children and young people?
So, carrying forth from where Mohua left it off, she talked about the positive effects, and there's no denying that there are positive effects, and we can't imagine our life without the internet. But there are, for children who experience an early or excessive exposure to internet, there are 3 types of risks. The risks are content risks, contact risks, and conduct risks. So I'll just explain all 3. Content risk is the risk that a child can find online content which is inappropriate, either age inappropriate or is illegal or is harmful. So anything from pornography to nudity to posts about hate, terrorism or violence, human trafficking. All of this is harmful for kids, is disturbing for kids to come across. Content risk is also about, when you encounter, when somebody's trying to, like an online scamming, right? So when you click on a link, it will take you to, it's called click tracking and phishing. So it poses a threat to your safety and to your device security. The second type of risk is contact risks, which basically means that when there is somebody posing as an there's actually a perpetrator, but somebody is posing as your friend. They might not even be your age, right? And the child or the adolescent is talking to them thinking that, oh, this is perfectly all right. So those are the kind of contact risks, and they put children at risk of a lot of abuse as well. There's a whole grooming process, there's child sexual abuse that can happen in the online space as well. And the third type of risk is contact risks, which basically means the way you behave online. So anything from sexting to sending nudes to being, to facing peer pressure and bullying online, cyberbullying is one of the biggest problems for school-going kids and adolescents. So anything that poses a risk to your behavior, like when you post something, being aware that this content is forever gone into the World Wide Web, and there is no way, even if you delete it, that you can remove the trace. So these are the three types of harms or online risks that children and adolescents are exposed to.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I did know about all those risks. I just didn't know that you could also classify them the way you just classified. So it's easy to remember.
Three C's, conduct, content, and contact.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Richa, I'll come to you now. You've built a very interesting internet filtering device. But how can that help mitigate some, if not all, of the risks that Dr. Meghna just talked about?
I think in the course of building the product, we actually spoke to like more than 200 parents physically and surveyed 2,000 of them. And a surprising aspect that we've now figured out is that contrary to what parents believe, kids are not actively searching for adult content. They are getting exposed to it inadvertently. And I think that kind of flips the problem massively, because it's no longer about discipline, it's about the nature of internet. And that is proven across the world. So there is a Guardian's case study that says that kids as young as 6 are exposed to pornography today. And they actually have a documentary around it, they've not shown the faces, but they've documented the experience of talking to them. They don't even know the word, and still they're able to describe it with the clarity, because they've been exposed to it. And so I think, of course I will promote happiness at every platform, but parental control filters have become not just a luxury or perhaps an option. Even the government of India has a circular around it which says that, if your child accesses internet in any format, you must have a parental control filter at home. So that's how the internet has shaped it. And I think one of my biggest themes, which of course I don't know if the panel is right, is that parents feel extremely judged when their kids are addicted to mobile or social media or bad screen time. But I just want to remind you that the nature of the internet is such that even adults are grappling with it. So, the first step is please forgive yourself and move out of this guilt that you are even responsible, because internet is wily as a character. But I think the guilt you must have is that there are tools out there and you are not acting on it. So maybe that's the take home which we can, have. And again, to give an anecdote, I play a lot of Scrabble on my phone, right? A Scrabble is a game I can recommend to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old as well. And I was shocked that when I play that, game, I'm actually being targeted with sex chat ads and, financial fraud links. Now, which parent will imagine that I'm giving a word game and, this will happen? Now, again, it's a feature with at least we have, that when you play a game on a parental control filter such as ours, ads get blocked. So at least one kind of menace which is not in your hands is getting blocked. So I think, I'm not saying that we are a holistic solution. Parents, educators, society, everyone has to come in on it. But at least we are a tool to start.
That's brilliant, and that is kind of the purpose of an event like this, to bring different people who are attacking the problem in different ways together, so that we can talk about a multi-pronged approach to a problem that that is real and that is quite stark as well. Shreyas, I'll come to you. You do something very interesting with the little gym. I got introduced to the little gym because I have an 18-month-old. So when he was about 7 or 8 months old, we were getting a bit worried about how do we engage with this, that and the other, and we looked up the internet about what can be done, and we found a little gym around the corner. And we've been sending him since he was 7 or 8 months old, and he absolutely loves it. Now that's a perfect excuse for not switching on the TV or not showing him cartoons on the phone and things like that. But I suppose the question to you is, do parents come to you with that intent, come to Little Gym with that intent, or is that kind of more an understated thing when they come to Little Gym?
First of all, thank you for being part of the Little Gym family. The short answer is yes. A lot of parents come to the Little Gym from developing their child from a social perspective. Now, I think the panel discussed a lot of impact of what internet has on a child, which could impact them in their development and growth. One of the things that we need to realize more is that a child is built to play and to be entertained, right? As long as they are entertained, you won't see them rushing to different devices and screens. Now, at least for when I spent my childhood, the best part about this is that the entire environment was safe. We could run around any place without our parents being worried about whether we will come back home or not. That's not the environment we live in today. Parents are very, very concerned about the safety of a child, and if they are not around, then the parents are worried. Rightfully so, because the environment is not the same as where we grew in, right? One of the key reasons why parent wants to explore an avenue like the Little Gym, where they are away from all these devices, away from all these avenues where they can learn good things, like Mahua pointed out, or the challenges that Richa or Meghna pointed out. One of the key things that happens at the Little Gym, and which we do take pride in, is that entire form of exercise is built using fun, right? And when you realize that, saying that a child can have fun away from all these devices, doing physical exercise, you can easily realize that the moment they get a chance to play, they will give up anything and everything that you can throw back at them, right? So I think the short answer is yes. A lot of parents do come to the Little Gym with an intent of not having their child go back to the device looking for entertainment.
Sure, that's quite interesting, and you talked about something that's very close to my heart and kind of makes me curious quite a bit, because when we were, I suppose we're the same generation, so when we were children, we used to play out quite a bit, right, like you mentioned, and we would make up games that don't make sense at all, silly games like Pitu, and there's a game called French cricket, which I don't know how many people relate to, but it was an outrageously silly game, but we just found ways to entertain ourselves when we were outside. So more, this is a question to you that, sure, you have, places like Little Gym, which are quite formal and structured, which offer avenues for children to engage physically and build social connections and bonds and things like that. But what more can parents do to encourage children to go out, play, make human relationships, the kind of stuff that we experienced when we were children?
My son is 24 years old, so I really did not face so much of this onslaught that I see now that's happening. We had children around the neighborhood who would come together and play in my own yard or play in my own veranda. And so the one thing that I think as parents that I did, I would not be able to say what others should do. It's too much of statement to make on how people should parent, but I did spend a lot of time every holiday, to take holidays with him, to go across to parks, to go to, to take him for his sports, because most kids at that time, they were going in for these football classes where they met other children and they played. And I think you need to be a little active there, and it can be a challenge if both the parents are working, and I was working at that time. But see, the other thing about parenting is that you have to realize that you're bringing up another human being who's going to grow up to have their own traumas, their own issues. So when you're a parent, you have to sacrifice that Saturday to go out with your child, to teach them about nature, to get them to meet other people, to be part of games, to be part of things in which they can touch, they can smell, they can feel, they can, experience. And I think that becomes a very integral part to start enjoying outside the internet. So, yeah, that was one thing that I did, and I did not find my child to be very addicted to the internet at all. And so, I think that was a good way, because I never struggled
Can I
with
just
that.
add to
Of course.
what you're saying, Mahua? So I know that I see a lot of parents for consultations, and parents are like, but मेरा बच्चा सीख रहा है, screen से सीख रहा है. Oh, they're learning numbers, they're learning rhymes, they're learning so much. So that's not a problem. And the basic problem with that premise that child is learning from a screen is that children are actually multisensorial learners. They learn through all their senses. That's what Mahua was referring to, right? You just don't see and hear. You also touch, you also smell, you also taste. Children are actually multisensorial learners, and if you remove the other three senses and focus on only two, you're actually doing your child a whole lot of disservice. So I just wanted to add that, it's very, very important for parents to understand, and that's why, a lot of even teens who, consult with me, I'm facing problems in studying for exams. But what kind of a learner are you? You know what? I think I roam and I learn my notes while walking. Oh, so you're probably a kinesthetic learner. But that's not something that they've learned about themselves. They're not in touch with their bodies. And that happens when, you have an overdose of screens. So I just wanted to add that.
That's brilliant. One thing that is consistently being repeated across the conversation that we've had since morning is that somehow parents have to find the time to and space to make these things happen. And whilst it does feel a bit of a privilege, not everybody can afford that kind of time and space, but people who can, should and must, because that's when they give their children the best opportunity to kind of explore their curiosity, build their social relationship and such. Richa, sorry.
Sarah, I think I'll add a little bit here.
Yeah.
When we speak about affordability, I think it is possible to take your child with you inside the kitchen when you're just kneading the dough. It's possible for you to take your child to touch the vegetables that you bring back. I think it's possible. So it's just, I think, about being aware of how is it that you teach them. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, that you take them to this very posh place to go learn and do things. You can do it in your kitchen. You can do it, in your living room. So
yeah. Good point. Richa, I'll come to you, and coming at it slightly from a technology angle, if you can humor us. Beyond the kind of filtering devices that you're building, like Happiness, what other strategies can parents use to moderate the use of screen or moderate access to the internet?
See, there is no replacement to open communication, right? So one idea at Happiness that we've cracked that we recommend to every single consumer or parent we touch upon is something called as tech contract. So what happens is that kids of any age, right, and if we were to also look at our own parenting, they thrive on clarity and they hate ambiguity. आपके लिए सही है, मेरे लिए गलत है क्यों? So they tend to start questioning the intention with which a parent approaches. Now, for example, I have a 2.5-year-old, and I am one of those very unprivileged parents who have zero time. So I have to be very mindful, right? I'm running 2 companies. because I also have to like, you know, move out, travel, etc. So when she's with me, and especially when I'm on my phone, she's very like, you know, phone to chi hai, then why are you using it? Because I've taught her that. So I have a trick that I tell her that, you know what, Mama, you sit next to me and you'll see Mama will send 3 messages. You count them. And after Mama sends 3 messages, you can take her phone and you can keep it wherever you want to. I'll give you that time. Now, obviously, I cannot sign a tech contract with her because, you know, she will not want to sign, I can sign it. But when you know, when you have older kids who tend to understand structure and forms and, you know, a basic acceptance of rules. So you create a tech contract with your family in which you assign, and you have to be very open to them. Like, I'm very open to the fact that I work, but I also want my me time. So I also want my 30 minutes of Netflix or, you know, or a phone call with a friend, and you add that. So in that tech contract itself, what you've done is you've taken on certain responsibilities, certain policies that you've scoped in. And this is the perfect way. No amount of tool can ever replace an actual genuine conversation that you're going to have with your children. But having said all of that, I still feel you must use tools, even if you're not using our tools. Because like I mentioned, there are more than 110 million websites and apps today. Okay, and I use every platform to state this. We are often talking about the fact how bad is the internet, how bad is the internet. Internet is a very bad place for youth. How bad is it? Let me tell you, more than 22 million of these fall into the category of adult and unsecure. How many does Government of India block as porn? 300. 300. So, you know, when the Government of India is not able to understand the scale of the problem, you are a parent, you cannot understand it. Even Bill Gates will use tools to monitor his grandkids. We have to remind ourselves that. So, I think technology has created a problem, yes. But let technology solve it. Embrace it. But, yes, you as a parent need to have your mechanisms in place, and I recommend tech contract as a great idea. Make a formal one. Some of our parents have done stamp paper also, you know, so that they have that sense of ownership. They framed it at dinner table, you know, I'm also not using my phone, yada yada. But I think, unfortunately, the rate at which the world has moved, safe internet is a technology problem. And which is where, again, from a global standpoint of view, some of you, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, it's a very important speak for me, but if you would have seen, there are governments like UK and US who are bringing in laws, right, which says that if a child lands on Wikipedia, they should be able to have a compliance mechanism to say that this certain kind of content is blocked. That's a law. The tech does not exist for it. Wikipedia at their end has said that when the law is going to come in action, it's a $2 billion capex investment for them. And they'll move out of UK in that position. So, my issue is that governments have to do that because parents are not using technology. So they have taken the onus onto themselves. So please use technology. There's out there, and that's the only way to provide it.
That is very, very insightful, but I love the idea of a tech contract because that kind of breaks down a lot of barriers, breaks down and simplifies a lot of things. But getting into a tech contract with a child also means that you are respecting your child as an individual themselves, as an autonomous human being who can make at least some level of decisions for themselves. So Dr. Meghna, question to you, especially in India, and I know I'm stereotyping a little bit, but you know, based on what I've seen, parenting is a very hierarchical exercise, and this whole trust-based tech contract and all of that requires a bit of an equal footing for the other partner. So how can parents kind of unlearn what they've been taught generationally and come to terms that now they have to talk to their kids, especially teenagers and older children, as equal individuals and say, okay, we'll get into a tech contract and you can hold me accountable just like how I will hold you accountable.
So as you rightly said, it requires a lot of unlearning. But the reason why parents of today have absolutely no excuse to not do this is because the kind of tools that are available today were not available 30 years back when they were growing up. So parents in my parenting consultations tell me one thing, "Arey, what is the need of this? My parents did this and I turned out fine." My parents hit me and I turned out fine. I'm like, yeah, but you did not have screens, so then what will you do? Do you have a roadmap for that? Do you have a blueprint for that? So the research, on child development, on the impact of internet or social media on the brains, of children and adolescents, that research was not existent, because there were no devices at that time. And today, we parents don't have any excuse, as I was saying, to unlearn, because there is so much of research now. So and we are educated, and we cannot say, well, I turned out fine anymore, because if we are not making advantage of the research that is available to us, which gives us guidance about how do I do this, right? Because the way we were being raised, we are not raising our children like that today. We can't, because the circumstances have completely changed. The society, the world, we are not raising our children in 1980s anymore. So the demands of, today are very different, and that is why we have to unlearn. Because it doesn't at all work if I tell my child because I said so. Because the child will be like, you know what, I don't care. You're not the king of the world. Right? And that is why you should educate yourself. You should, go to people who are spreading this message. You should go to psychologists, and you should go to educators who practice from the vantage point of positive parenting, right? Which is also known as gentle parenting or, authoritative parenting. So there are sources. If you don't want to go to a library and read research or read research on the internet, there are people, there are professionals. You say that, you know what, I have gained weight, I need to go to a nutritionist. You can also go to an educationist or a psychologist, right? If you don't know how to unlearn, you can access professional help to learn.
That's brilliant, because and that's coming back to what Richa was saying earlier, that you can use tech to beat tech. So it's very easy to find the kind of experts that you're talking about, mental health practitioners, psychologists, psychiatrists, etc. It's very easy to find them. If they're not in your city, you can still access them virtually. Tech is enabling all of those kinds of things as well. So there's a saying in Hindi for those who don't speak Hindi, I translate it, loha lohe ko katta hai, like you cut metal with metal. So this is fantastic. Thank you. Shri, if you want to say something, sorry.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add to what Rina said, because I think she put it very beautifully, right? I think the toughest job in this world is parenting. And the worst part is it doesn't come with a manual, right? And every parent, irrespective of who they are, their ultimate objective is to do the best for their child in their know-how. The challenge is that the know-how that used to exist or what they are aware of or the environment had taught them is restricted based on their experiences. Now, the challenge for a parent today is to understand and accept that first, that the environment has changed, hence the learning for me has to change. And there are two levels at which it needs to happen. And I think the biggest thing that all of us are talking about is the matter of time, right? One, are we giving enough time to be a better parent by teaching ourselves first? And the second bigger question than that also is, are we ready to spend enough time to understand our child better? Because we have discussed this enough today as well, saying that every child is unique. So their learning mechanism is unique. You can't take a blanket approach to parenting and saying that now that's the way it's going to work, right? Parenting has to happen at two different levels. One is to know the new environment and learn what are the tools available for me today to be a better parent for my child. So I have to spend enough time with my child to recognize their uniqueness today. And I think that's the key crux of why either help or awareness or education becomes primary importance in becoming a better parent.
Wonderful, thank you. So Dr. Meghna, I'll ask you now a very specific question. We've spoken about a lot of general things. I'll ask you a very specific question followed by you, Mohua. It's the same kind of theme, which is, despite all the efforts that you're talking about, let's say an ideal parent exists somewhere who's doing everything that we've just discussed, taken the time out, learned, got the tech contract and all of that. You still run the risk of a child being exposed to something like cyberbullying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the time and age that we live in. Let us say you learn about it either indirectly or directly, that your child is experiencing cyberbullying. How can or how should a parent support their child in that journey?
So, first of all, the parents need to know what are the warning signs that they see in their child. A lot of children who are being cyberbullied won't necessarily come to the parent and reveal that. Some children might not have the vocabulary to, or sometimes the gap between the emotional connect between the parent and the child is not such, and sometimes children are just ashamed for no fault of theirs, because they sort of personalize. Children are very egocentric, they sort of personalize. So first of all, the first step is for parents to be aware what are the warning signs of cyberbullying. So if my child appears more sad and withdrawn, and their online behavior has changed, and their school behavior, their school refusal has come in, they are expressing some kind of hopelessness or helplessness, and these are symptoms that you observe for at least 2 weeks. You know that something is up, and through gentle questioning and through gentle conversations, you can bring this up. The second thing is, in cyberbullying particularly, you have to ascertain if there is any proof, right? So if the child has been excluded from WhatsApp groups, or the child is being abused online, what is the nature of cyberbullying that has happened, and if there has been any documented evidence, right? And and the third step is to report it. And the fourth step is to emotionally support the child in dealing with it. So I'll talk quickly about the third step. What I mean by reporting is, if the cyberbullying is, for example, happening in the context of school. So what is the school's policy on cyberbullying? And this is something that a lot of parents don't get into. Each school is mandated to have a policy on bullying, which includes cyberbullying. And a parent can walk up to their child's school and say, I want to know your policy on bullying. And the school is mandated to display that, to show that. So find out about what is the policy and take action accordingly. And the fourth step then, of course, will be to support the child, in the sense telling them it was not your fault, and basically equipping them to skills on how to deal with it. See, the problem with cyberbullying, with any kind of bullying, is the child lacks the skills to be able to deal with a whole lot of that teasing, to deal with whatever has been happening, whether it's abuse, whatever is happening. So how can I empower my child to learn those skills? Whether the bullying is happening in the playground, whether the bullying is happening online. One thing is common. The child must learn skills to be able to navigate that complex social situations. And social relationships are very complex, we know that. We have concepts like frenemies, right? A friend who's an enemy, and even adults don't know about these concepts, right? So, yes, exactly. I was recently talking at a conference and I said, oh, frenemy, and one man, the adult man, is like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. So obviously for parents to be aware of this, and for parents to be able to follow these 4 steps that I just outlined, and be able to support the child, but never to blame the child. Because it's not like, and even if the parent feels that the child is at fault, like, why did you share your picture, or why did you send this message? It's never a good idea to blame the child. Always the idea is, my child lacks some skills, and I need to be able to help my child learn those skills. Because blaming and attacking and all that is unhelpful.
Sure, thank you. Mohua, same question. As a parent, how would you sort of propose supporting supporting children who might have experienced cyberbullying? And cyberbullying comes in many ways, right? I mean, there's this massive cancel culture that happens these days, I have a nephew, who's been, as I said, kicked off from WhatsApp groups because he didn't turn up for a particular game, or this, that, and the other. And those are kinds of forms of bullying as well that children are experiencing these days. So as a parent, what would your advice be? I know we've heard from Dr. Meghna as a practitioner, but as a parent, more practically, what are some of your thoughts?
So I think we've just kind of started articulating words like cancel culture. Cancel culture has been existing since ages now. Cancel culture has been part and parcel of families, where you will find one sibling or one cousin who's just been cancelled because he or she may be very nerdy, he or she may be very forthright, may not be part of that entire the kingpin of a group, And we just didn't have a word for it in the past, but now we have words like cancel culture. And it is now being spoken that, people, because I think mental health is very young. It's not a very old conversation or a topic or an industry where you can actually go out there and talk to a therapist. It's extremely young. But I will narrate to you about an incident and she came onto my podcast from a very prestigious school in Delhi. His name was Arav. And because he wore nail polish, there were boys who took this little young boy into the toilet and bullied him and harassed him. And this is a single mother. And then there was a lot of cyberbullying for him, and she was a teacher in the school. Can you imagine that, right? And her only child was constantly bullied so terribly that one night, while she was sleeping, he committed suicide. He jumped from the building. And this is an 18-year-old boy who passed away. The school did not want to take responsibility. And there was RV is his name, and RV's mother has been seeking justice for very, very long now. And the school said that, if you complain, we'll ensure that you're out of your job. And then being a single mother, single child, I mean, I can't even fathom the trauma. But she went ahead and she complained and she was thrown out of school, right? And she was very frightened to go ahead and get help from from authorities, because I think it's extremely insidious. As much as we talk about the fact that there has to be recognition, there will be communication, there is a system that's put in there. I think it's going to take many, many years, Sairam, before we can really put all these things into practice and start sensitizing ourselves that if a child is, being treated like this, or is being cancelled, it can have a very, very detrimental effect in their personalities and going ahead. And in many homes, even now, there is a whole system where there'll be this whole macho culture where they'll say, "Arey yaar, ladke ho, kyun ro rahe ho? Jaake aapko thappad mare, to aap 4 thappad aur maar ke aa jao." And so there are many, many cases like RV. And if you go on the internet, you will find that she has been trying to get justice and she's still not got justice even now. So this continues, and I think it's a very, very deep process, and it's going to take some time.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think all the more reason as to why parents need to be all the more present and all the more observant of the subtle cues that children may be giving you indirectly, through their body language, through their behavior, because they haven't yet found the language to articulate what they're experiencing. Just very coincidentally, we are going to, we're moving to a question that I was going to ask you anyway, which is, schools and parents need to work together to support children, especially those who are experiencing, some form of bullying, cyberbullying, etc. But what are the proactive ways in which parents can ensure that they have that kind of working relationship, collaborative relationship with the schools? So, what I'm trying to get at is, do you wait for something to happen, or do you proactively build that relationship right up front every PTA meeting, so that if it gets to a point, you can already call on some goodwill?
The simple answer to this is prevention is the best way to approach this, right? And I think the only way you can prevent this is when you actually have that bond with your child, so that the channel of communication is continuously open all throughout. And it doesn't matter the content of that communication, the quality of that communication. If your child is consistently feeling safe with you to come and talk to you, I think that's the first level at which it needs to start. Then you can put a structure in place that will facilitate that communication even further, right? The second thing that we are doing, and I don't think as parent we raise children, right? We as parent are responsible to create an environment where a child can raise themselves in a skin that they are comfortable with, right? And that is our job as parents. We are not raising kids. We are creating environment for a child to grow into a skin that they are comfortable with. That's true parenting. And when you do that at a first level, right? After that, you can go around and check the surroundings as to where and how can their uniqueness be interpreted in a different manner. like the example Mahua gave, it's not a crime to do something to express yourself, but because it's not a no, that's how it gets treated as, right? So the second thing that we need to understand is to understand the avenues where unique aspect of a child's personality is treated as either a deviation from the norm or something which is unacceptable, right? And I think once you have identified those avenues, the third level at which it works is that you equip your child to deal with them very well, right? And the first level of that itself is for them to be comfortable of who they are, right? A confident child can navigate any situation. But if you as a parent are continuously judging or giving them ways in which they should behave, right? Create a structure, then that channel is not open. So, to answer your question, there are multiple levels at which this could be prevented. And ideally, that's the only approach we as parents need to be aware of or need to take. Cure, we will all definitely do when they are exposed to it. But the best way to make sure that the child never faces this is to equip them as much as possible upfront.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Shreyas. Final set of questions, one for you, Richa, and one for you, Dr. Meghna. Richa, you first. So we spoke a little bit about learning about technology. Parents need to learn about technology and how they could or they need to do this to make sure that they're able to help their children navigate internet and social media safely. You do a lot of workshops in schools, as do we. At least what we've seen is, when we run a workshop on, let's say, cyberbullying or workshop on parental controls, it's typically an optional workshop, and not many parents sign up. What are your thoughts on that?
We are actually partnered with a lot of internet service providers in India, and they do a lot of these residential camps around parental control filters. They are obviously our distributors also in the way. Just before I was coming for this event yesterday, one of the owners called me up and said, I have a very peculiar example to give and I don't know how to solve for it. In his own society, a child jumped and died, right? It was actually traced back that the problem was germinating on the internet. He said he's an older fellow, his kids are going to water right now, so they are good kids. And he said that my wife and I, we got very perturbed, and as was others in the society. For 2-3 days there was a lot of conversation that this was the second such incident in 2 months. So they started talking that we must create some sort of a forum or an avenue or an explanation where things can be done. Now, since he's our partner, he was being very, he didn't want to come across as somebody who's selling in the moment of a crisis. So we have a lot of doctors onboarded with us who run sessions and who are doctor influencers. So he sent one of our doctor videos and said that I know the CEO and she does these sessions. Why don't we bring her in and just understand how it can all happen? Everyone disappeared. And he said, I don't understand, because this was the same group of people who for the last 2 days were extremely concerned, and here my wife and I came up with a solution, and not even selling a solution, just to understand. I guess what's happening is the sense of helplessness about internet has really got to parents. And I think there are two aspects of it. One, we have this debate a lot. There are a lot of parents who are searching for a solution like this. They come to us, they talk to us, and that's it. And then there are these parents who are like, they're on the periphery, they're on the fence. They are not really acting on it. It could be us, it could be reaching out to someone like her, it could be just having an open chat about the fact that my child needs therapy. And I think it germinates from 2-3 aspects. One, genuinely generational trauma. They have been judged all their life by their parents that seeking any kind of a remedial tool, action, space is taboo, right? So they think there's something wrong with my kid. The favorite line I will hear in school sessions is, my kid is very disciplined. So I said, your kid is very disciplined, but the internet is not. So it doesn't matter if your child is the best kid out there, because internet will still affect it the same way. So I think there is this concern that if I will seek an action like this, I'm accepting the fact that I failed as a parent. I could not control my child. I could not manage the situation at home. And again, that's why, when we talk about this in any session, we always say exactly the same thing, that this is not a problem to solve. You cannot manually block 22 million websites and apps. It's preposterous. Your problem to solve is to act. And again, cyberbullying, for example, we don't solve for it. And we're very candid about it, and we say it upfront, that the tool is not able to do that, and cyberbullying being solved at a tool level is actually a huge AIML channel, which we are also a part of that conversation. We are also trying to solve for it. But for that you need professionals, you need an open communication, and that's even more difficult. They might go for us, but they still might not go for a session. So I think platforms like these have to break that taboo, and we have to at least come down to the fact that the brass tacks is that every single day you are talking how bad the internet is, how much addicted your child is. And when there is a time to act on it, you are disappearing.
I think that happens, if I may just add to what you're saying, Richa. I think this is really important, a very important conversation. Because of course, people who come to me and reach out to me as a mental health professional, they self-select themselves. They are the motivated people who feel ki nahi, I need help, my child needs help. But I think the kind of people that you're talking about, one of the major psychological barriers for those parents is, you know what, mere bacche ko kuch nahi hoga. And you're like, you don't want to tell them that, you know what, your child can get addicted, your child has probably watched porn, and your child may get cyberbullied, and your child may get solicited by somebody online, and a whole lot of danger scenarios that you don't want to scare the parents. But the fact is, it's out there. And your child is one click away from any of the risks that I was talking about. So let's not be ostriches and bury our heads in the sand and hamare ko kuch nahi hoga, hamare bacche ko kuch nahi hoga, I don't think it's valid anymore. Because children, as Richa said, children as young as 6 are getting exposed to porn. Children as young as 4, I've seen them in my practice, who are addicted to smartphones. Right? So let's not pretend that there is no danger out there anymore. There is a danger. How are we so ready to talk about stranger danger? Arey, a stranger se baat mat karna, playground, when you go to the playground, don't talk to a stranger. Koi toffee dena, to mat lena. But what about online?
I mean, very, very true what you're saying, and I have another point, and I keep giving this anecdote even in sessions. When I was in college, right, my cousins who were a little older to me had just about had their babies, and I'm sure everyone will relate to it. Mera bachcha to phone chala leta hai.
And can I respond to that? Can I please respond to that? So when parents say this to me, my 5-year-old or my 4, whatever ridiculous age is able to operate, I'm like, I don't say this out loud. Yeah, so I say that, the real credit is not with your child. Your child is not a genius. The real credit is the engineer who made this technology that a person from 5 to 50 can operate this with ease. So yeah, let's be real.
But what's happened now? Back then it was an exciting conversation because it was a gimmick, right? And parent knew more than the child. Today the tables have turned, right? Now that child, the technology gap between a parent and a child is massive. So a parent is very scared that now when I say that this child is using my laptop or is sitting in the room and I'm not allowing it, McKinsey has coined a term called bedroom culture, which means that your child is having a personal relationship with the gadget that he wants to attend to independently even without you entering the room. So these are the things that scare people. And second, in my case, not in the case of cyberbullying, in my case, the biggest problem statement that we have with parents, and I was literally finalizing the communication with my team before I came on stage, is that hum aa jayenge filter mein, my spouse will start spying on what I am doing, my spouse will start blocking stuff. because every single one of us have skeletons in our internet history. Even we do, right? And we are very scared that, if I'll put happiness, what if I come under the purview of this platform and then my spouse starts looking at what I'm doing. So our biggest thing is, if you will look at our website, our third statement is we do not impact the devices connected to the main internet. That is the third line. And I was coming, one of our partners said, can you please, we said this is secondary communication. He sent us an email and said, make this the primary communication and give it to us. Because, so I think internet, by the nature of it impacts all of us, right? And what happens is that now I know all my bad reads on the internet. When you come and tell me that at least a fraction of it your child does, I get so scared that, I'm freezing, I'm not ready to act on it. And again, the stigma associated with accepting that I have zero control on my child and I might need help is so huge. But thankfully, we've seen patterns in urban and educated sections and societies where they look at it from a more black and white way, objective. And we've started using, which is, I'm not approving that communication, but you tell a parent that safe internet for kids means that you will have distraction-free study time and your child has a better chance of going to IIT. They'll buy it.
Yeah.
They'll buy it, and which is not the communication I'm a huge fan of. But
But it works.
But it works. It works. That Sharma Ji Beta is an entire, Excel.
It's a universe in itself.
Yeah.
I know the conversation is just getting warmed up, and we could spend the entire evening talking about this, but unfortunately, it's about the time where I have to open it up for the audience. Any questions from the audience on this really interesting topic? I know it's been a long and tiring day, but I'm sure your mind is burning with questions. Yes.
Hi. So basically, thanks a lot again for each of you all. Everything does contribute for what we have come here today. My question is to Dr. Meghna. I do follow you. I know you're the therapist, mommy. I recently loved there were 3 particular things from your page I really liked. You have addressed a lot of things today, so I thought I'll ask you something different. I want to know, you mentioned about how people questioned you marrying someone who has a different skin color in one video. Second, you also addressed that your daughter's skin color too at the same time. And third, you also had this thing where people were having this kind of weird, taboo that you're married but you don't look like it. So I just want to say, with all these things, what is one thing you have learned and something which keeps you going? Because you addressed cyberbullying, you already addressed about all of that. But with these certain out-of-the-box topics which just hits us out of nowhere. Now I have the same issue. My husband is not the same color as me, and yet I do face that as well. But I have learned to ignore it. But there comes upon a time that it tends to break me as well, because I just feel, why is that getting attention for no reason? We all are in different colors here. We are happy in our own skin. So what would be your take on that? What would you say to a person who is constantly, coming after you for such things like that? Yeah.
Well, the answer is both simple and complex. So thanks so much for going through all my videos. And there's a commonality between, people here must be wondering why we're talking about digital technology and what does skin color have to do with it. And the answer is surprisingly common. And the answer is, keep having ongoing conversations with everyone around you. With your kids, particularly as parents, and with everybody around you. Even if you're not an educator, even if you're not a psychologist or a mental health professional yourself, the idea is to be able to raise awareness in whatever capacity. So if I meet somebody who talks to me about caste, or who talks to me about screen time, or who talks to me about skin color, my answer is the same, right? My answer is, what kind of conversations are you having with your kids about all of this? So that's what I would say, that my go-to strategy is always keep having ongoing conversations, especially with your kids, but also people around you. And that really helps you sort of stay rooted to your values and stay grounded in your principles.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Hi all, thank you for a wonderful section there. So I'm Shrila, I'm a child psychologist. Being a mother of a toddler of 4-year-old, I understand work-life balance is something which we all struggle being a working parent, right? And especially with the digital era, we also have that pressure of not posting our child on the digital platform, where we see a lot of cousins or peers doing it. So how do you make that balance, one, work-life balance in this digital era, and also not getting into that kind of influence where everybody are posting their child's victory or making them to sing a song or a dance, right? And we see the negative side of it, wherein AI can regenerate the child and mimic, and there is a lot of fake and all of these kind of crime that's happening. So how do we do that? Thank you.
Hi. By the way, Assam Police has an amazing campaign on this. It's called Sharenting. It says that they're against sharenting, and it's a globally covered campaign. So I hope all of you actually go and have a look at it. They've been doing it for years. Now, sharenting, in my opinion, of course, you mentioned correctly. I also wanted to share pictures about my child, and at the same time, I have a community of strangers out there connected with me. I'm mindful of the fact that I don't share anything which is unflattering to her. Like, honestly, I'm very averse sharing pictures of her crying, grumpy, or her not being in a comfortable space. But I'm not saying that I don't share pictures at all, but I avoid them as much. Now, that's a personal choice. There are a lot of people who put a flower or a heart or whatever. But yes, there is definitely a concern that it is not our pictures to share, and maybe later on 10 years down the line they might question us on it, so you'll have to make that choice yourself. Which is why I referenced sharenting, because Assam Police does a great job of giving those guidelines, and also they have like these great case studies around sharenting that are globally covered. I think it's been covered by Time also, that that an Indian police academy has done something like this. Coming on work-life balance, I think I love this question because I don't think I have work and life at all. But I follow very simple rules, which is that I actually do tap into a very robust schedule. And for example, I have a 6 to 8 kind of a narrative with my child that I am going to spend time with her every day. My husband and I run both the companies together, so we also have that kind of understanding that sometimes I have a meeting at 7, he will not have a meeting then, so that she at least gets to spend time with one parent in that 6 to 8 period. Secondly, of course, weekends also I'm working, so I try and pick one weekend, half a day of the weekend that I can spend completely with her. But that's on the quantity side. Like, a lot of us of course are very ambitious, and honestly I'm not one of those people who feel that you shouldn't be ambitious as a parent. You should be very ambitious. After all, we've studied and built that entire thing. But it's more about quality and not quantity. So, when you are spending that time, please don't make it sound like you are doing them a favor, because you're not, right? And I've seen a lot of parents, what they do is they'll spend hours, but they'll grip about it. She does not let me spend, time with my friends. She does not let me go and work. She does not let me do that. And I think that's a huge guilt. And I'll give you my personal example. My mom was probably one of the smartest people I know, and she quit her job to take care of us. And I always heard her talk about the fact that once we'd grown up, she used to have so much time, and she missed out on her career. And I still feel guilty about it as a child. I still feel that yes, she was one of the most intelligent people in her house, and she had to sacrifice that. So, please, as a parent, you have to be mindful that don't do anything that is not natural. And I think on one of the earlier panels, someone said that kids pick on body language, and that is very true. They do. Even if you tell them that I'm happy and that's okay, I made that sacrifice, but internally or not, they pick those cues very well. So I'd say that please balance the quality perfectly. Take that time out for them, make them feel good. And I've already started seeing, at least in my 2.5-year-old, that earlier she would need a lot of time from me, but now it's like if I give her half an hour dedicated time, she gets bored. she's already onto something else and she does not want to talk to me, or she wants to play and move around, or do something else. So I think work-life balance is not something that is very complex as long as your intention is correct, you're honest with yourself, and it cannot be that what works for me works for you. So, Jeff Bezos writes these amazing annual letters to his stakeholders, and I always make it a point to read. And in one of them, he spoke about work-life balance, and he said it's not that you can compartmentalize work-life balance. Every day during lunch at 1:30, I make it a point to call my mother. Now, is that work or is that life? Because I am doing that in the middle of a work day, right? So you have to design the day you want, and you like, and you enjoy, and you are okay with. And as a parent, I can tell you that please don't do it as a favor to the kid, because that's a deal breaker.
I think we have to wrap up.
One more.
Yeah, sure. Fine. Last question.
Thank you. It's been an engaging day, and throughout the day we've heard a lot about conversations that parents need to have, right? I want to flip it around, and this is open to anyone. Where should the parents learn to draw the line of acceptance? Because the reality is my 4-year-old is going to grow up to be very different to who I am, what I think is right or wrong, right? How many ever conversations I have with her about something that I perceive is wrong might be right for her. So how do we parents tune ourselves to be okay to accept? There will be a point where we need to draw the line and say, fine, this is the individual. What are your parting thoughts on acceptance for a parent?
So I think one of the key things, that first thing that we need to realize is that we treat parenting as if that the child is our birthright and they have to grow up in a certain way, manner and form, right? That's the first biggest challenge that we face as a parent, because we have been conditioned to be that way, that there are certain norms that a child, in order to be a good child, that's what they have to behave like. What we don't realize is that the world keeps changing on a day-to-day basis, if not multiple times in a day. You are not living the life that your child is living. And like I said in the beginning of this conversation as well, our job as a parent is to create an environment and let them be. And when we accept that fact as a parent, your acceptance for your child to be in a certain way or form becomes non-judgmental. And when it is non-judgmental, acceptance is by default that comes through.
I think Khalil Gibran says in one of his books that children are not of you; they are just from you. That's really it. So I think that summarizes what you just said. I think we'll close the panel. Thank you so much, Dr. Meghna, Richa, Mahua, Shreyas. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much to the audience as well. You've been very, very sort of attentive and engaged. So this is the last panel. I'll hand it over back to Reena. Over to you, Reena.
Thank you, Saina. Thanks a lot, panel. I'll add your summaries to the overall summary as well. Yep, that's it. We have come to the end of panel discussion 3, and with that, I'd just like to take a quick 5-minute to give you a whole recap of what we learned, what were the best takeaways. At least my best takeaways from all of the sessions and panel discussions today. I'm going to be very brief, just like a run through. Yep, starting from Abby's video to panel discussion 3. Social media only shows the best life of people, be it celebrities or anybody, and no one has a perfect life, and it's totally okay to have mental disorders. And once when you realize that you have something, it's totally okay to reach out and seek for professional help. It takes a lot of courage to reach out for help, and it takes more courage to be vulnerable. And then obviously we heard in the suicide prevention session that don't hear, listen, and you listening, by listening you can save a life, a lot of lives, and a broken adult can break a child unintentionally. So let's practice to be more mindful and parents should also teach their children on how to express and regulate emotions and how to face their downtimes and how to handle failures as much as they talk about successes. Mutual respect, how important it is in educational institutions, how emotional intelligence is important, and anonymity, maintaining anonymity when it comes to seeking medical help, how it should be maintained in education institutions and outside, how children want and love quality time from their parents, and small gestures like notes in a different box go a long way, and not comparing, like parents or teachers or educators, not comparing them with their elder siblings or with their cousins or with whoever has set the highest of standards, and not pressurizing them, and also not scarring them with words which might be just monumental. And obviously, again, as we reiterated in the final session, children pick up patterns and habits from adults, and let's try to be responsible adults who are showing the path and leading the way. And obviously, we had a short film which emphasized on co-parenting after a divorce, how important is it. And yeah, in the digital well-being session, we also got to know that operating with balance is the key to success in a digital age. It can be good, it can be bad, it depends on how we use it. And we also heard about content and contact, how digital well-being is important there. And just like the panel mentioned, parenting doesn't come with a manual. It's a really complex task, and we should learn gentle parenting. And to break the generational trauma, we should unlearn a couple of things when parents do the parenting. And last but not the least, instead of blaming the child when it comes to cyberbullying, when they reach out to you telling that, I saw this or I'm stuck with this, instead of blaming them, how important it is to help them and lend a ear and provide them with a solution. So with that, we close today's session. I want to give a huge round of applause from all of you, for all of you, all the medical practitioners, mental health counselors, psychologists, therapists, educators, and people from all the education institutions. You all coming together to talk, discuss, and to implement things and solutions about mental health, especially for youth, is such an amazing task. And just like all of you would have heard during the introduction, a lot of guest speakers. We would love to thank our speakers. Thank you so much. A lot of them flew in from US, UK, Mumbai, Pune, everywhere across the country and also outside the country. And I just had the stand-up implicitly, and I went and asked one of our speakers, Ms. Riddhima, I asked her, why did you fly in from Mumbai just for like a one-day event, or did you have a combined agenda? And she mentioned this session is about mental health, especially mental health of children and youth, and I feel that this is something that gives me satisfaction. This is my profession, passion, and when I do things like this, taking extra effort, it makes me realize that I'm living my life's purpose. So those are such deep words which I'll get back from today's session. And finally, I'd like to say a gratitude note to Mindei, obviously Team Mindei, for bringing such an amazing summit together, from organizing the speakers to the audiences and all of that. So Mr. Sairam, Ms. Rishu, Dr. Indrajit, Ms. Gauri, Mr. President, to the whole organizing team, the volunteers, and also people at Royal Orchid Convention Center for helping us with the site-ups arrangement, and to the media team for their coverage. Thanks a lot to all of you. I just have a final announcement to make. So all of you will have this pamphlet in your tables. Please search for it, or if not, you can, if you're reachable to the screen, you can please scan the link. So a good news is that all of you would have seen a demo of Mind Voice by Ms. Richu. So when you scan this link, you'll be taken to the website, and when you use the code mentioned in your pamphlet, you'll get a 1-week free trial to use the tool. So you can basically use the tool with kids whom you're associated with. You can share it with people, take a snippet of it, because it's free for the next 1 week. It's a user-free trial because Team Indie wants it to reach to a larger audience at free of cost, which is basically the aim of the team, to make it affordable and accessible. So please use it, please give us feedback. And if you have any queries, you can reach out to the social media handles at Mindei in Instagram, or also you can mail them at support@mindei.in. And finally, after the 1 week, if you want to take tests or if you want to keep using Mindei, it's very cheap. It's just ₹99 for a full comprehensive test per test. So yeah, thanks from the organizing team. Signing off.